How will you contribute to the world today in a way that only you can? Ponder that question as you dive into today's episode of the Leap Beyond Success podcast with Micheline Nader. Every episode is designed to help you lean into your passion, execute from your purpose, align your mindset, and program your emotions so that you can leap into the world and show up as who you want to be in the world for yourself and for whoever you choose to serve. Let's dive in and evolve together. Enjoy the conversation. 95% of 7,000 diseases worldwide have no treatment at all right now. Part of the problem is the amount of time it takes to discover and develop solutions. Another issue is the cost of drug research and development for healthcare entrepreneurs who are trying to find those solutions. And we all know that the cost of the drugs for the end consumer is also an issue for many. Well, Soujanya Bhumkar with Genie Life Sciences aims to transform the industry with the work he and his team are doing in the world of medicine and AI. And in this interview, Micheline Nader asks him some powerful questions, and together they start to reveal the potential future that is coming as a result of the work of Soujanya, his team, Genie Life Sciences, and others in their field. They hope to not only make a huge dent in this area themselves, but inspire others as well to raise the bar, to discover and develop things faster than ever, with better accuracy than ever, and also lower costs across the board in the process. That is what they're trying to do right now, and it sounds like they're already having wonderful success. So enjoy this interview, and I hope that you walk away with some really enthusiasm about where the industry is going and what's possible for humanity all around.
Welcome, Soujanya. I'm so excited to talk to you today about Genie Life Sciences. So, Soujanya Bhumkar, and you're also one of the brains behind the creation, the foundation of Genie Life Sciences, and Ritu Lal is also the big brain behind it as well. So before we start, I'd like you to give me just a brief bio about you and Ritu, if you like.
Yes, sounds good. So firstly, by the way, thank you for having me. On behalf of Genie Life Sciences, Genie, as you know, is the symbolism for the magical lamp. So may all our wishes come true. And the spelling is GEn1E.com. The one represents our approach to precision medicine. One represents the first-in-class therapies, novel therapies that we bring to the patients. And for us, it is all about making sure we are accelerating therapies. These are novel therapies for patients in the most efficient possible way. Our focus is on areas of inflammation and as well as some rare diseases. So immunology, inflammation, rare diseases is the area that we are focusing in. And we are lucky and fortunate. We are today a clinical stage phase 2 company. And Ritu, in fact, is currently in the middle of the phase 2 study as we speak, which is why I'm representing her here. I'll give you a quick idea about Ritu's journey and then my journey. Ritu and I met back in India. Ritu is the founder and the CEO of Genie. We finished bachelor's, came to the United States. We were both in different cities. She finished her master's in pharmacology and then PhD from University of Maryland. And then she worked at Abbott, Roche, and then Xenoport. After working for 17 years, she went back to Stanford Business School, and she got her master's in management, and then decided to start Genie, looking at the large unmet need. And also the whole thing around why does it take so long? Why is it so costly to develop the drugs? And interestingly, at a time when you are seeing the technology coming in such an inflection point that when you say biotech, so where is the tech? How can the tech be amplified? So that has been her journey in terms of starting and why she started Genie. My journey has been a little bit similar yet different, meaning she and I went to college together for our undergrad, which is where we met. Go way back, as you can see. I did my master's in chemical engineering here in the United States, actually in Oklahoma, very close to Kansas. Then I worked for about 4.5 years with Nestle and Pioneer Foods. This is in the frozen foods area. I went to University of Chicago for my full-time MBA. This is around the same time that Ritu was actually working at Abbott. And in fact, she was working on a drug for the HIV pandemic. So on Kaletra, which is a protease inhibitor. That's what her sort of career was when I was in school at University of Chicago. We both then moved to the Bay Area. So while she was at Roche, and then I started my startup journey. I've been lucky to have been part of 4 different startups so far. Previous one was a company called Cool Iris, which was acquired by Yahoo, and I ended up becoming the head of mobile partnerships for Yahoo. So my team and I, then we were responsible for syndication of search as well as other of the Yahoo products by working with our strategic mobile partners, and we were driving a revenue of $300 million for Yahoo at that time. I joined Genie a year after it was started. So I joined during the pandemic. In fact, when you see the walls inside our house and even in our offices, all the walls are covered with white boards so we can write any thought that we have in our mind. And that's how I then integrated into Genie.
Amazing. Soujanya and Ritu, not only I love what you do, but I love you both as human beings. Your heart is with Genie, but also with the impact that Genie can create for people. So for me, with the Leap Beyond Success, I really call you leapers, and you're the perfect example because you accelerated like from early discovery to phase 2.5 years with seed capital. So your efficiency for the stakeholder has been like amazing. And as human beings, like you, not only your heart is in the right place, you're so smart and efficient in what you do, and you give it your all at all times. So I'm excited to know Genie more and to also, about this interview and include Genie in my case study for my next book coming up soon about leaping in the age of AI. And I know that Genie is AI based. So we're going to talk today a little bit about this platform and how is AI currently impacting your industry as biotech, but also how is it a platform for you to create what you're creating?
Yes, no, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity, by the way, and really, really grateful that it's very mutual feeling, as you know, what we feel for you, what you've helped us with, what Transfer has been so amazing to us, right, in terms of the transformation. So truly grateful for this opportunity, and happy to share whatever we can, of course.
So let's move a little bit to the AI platform of Genie and give us a little bit of an overview about it for the reader or the.
Okay, let me set the table. I think it will be useful to terms of talking about the AI part of it. So as I mentioned earlier, and as you also alluded to, we are a clinical stage phase 2 company. We did accelerate from early discovery to phase 2 in 2.5 years, and seed capital, in fact, very little, orders of magnitude less than what it would otherwise take some other biotech companies. So that's for the first program. Now for the second, so we have 3 main programs currently going on. The second program, knock on wood, our goal is to get from early discovery to phase 1. Phase 1 has not started yet, but knock on wood, that's where we are moving towards. And that would have actually come in a time period from early discovery to that in 1.5 years. So we are able to show some repeatability around that. And also, by the way, in very single low digit $1 million. So very less capital. So it's the same efficiency we've been able to, knock on wood, replicate on that. Still many more bridges to cross. So fingers crossed, of course, and keep your good wishes and vibes coming at us.
Of course.
Thank you.
But just as an idea, Soujanya, like how much usually does it take other biotech to get to?
Correct. That's a good calibration. So let's take the first one, right? It took us 2.5 years and single digit millions. It otherwise would have taken literally 5 to 7 years of time and hundreds of millions of dollars. So that's typically the range, and that's what when you think about a biotech or a biopharma company, that's the velocity and that's the efficiency, capital efficiency that we are looking at here. So I would say the attribution. So then the question is, okay, well, what are you guys doing so uniquely? Which is the natural, logical question that anybody would ask. And it definitely involves AI, but I'm going to frame it in there are three main buckets. We call them as 3 Ts. The first one is the team. Of course, the team, without the right teammates, that T is equally important. Ritu has tremendous amount of experience. She has already brought 3 drugs to the approvals from early discovery to approval in the United States as well as approval in Japan. So she knows the domain knowledge. She knows the drug development aspects of it, the details of it. Second T for us is the target. So the choice of the target, the biology aspects of it, what is it, how to kind of make it more unique. And she worked on some of these targets 20 years ago when she was actually in the previous companies. So she knows the domain, also knows what did not work quite right. So sometimes in life, you get the second mover advantage. I mean, if you think about Amazon, there used to be a web van long ago, and there used to be all these other companies that tried but didn't work, and then Amazon came later. You have so many examples like that. You see, even in the case of iPhone or iPod, there was a Newton, which was by Apple, did not work, and then the second launches were amazingly successes. MySpace did not work, but Facebook did. So there is a second mover advantage in the choice of the targets that did not work 20 years ago. She knows how to really improve upon that biology, which is what we have done. That's the second T. And the third T is the technology, which is, I think, the main area of topic today. And within technology, it is AI, it is machine learning, specifically speaking. And I think a few of the things that are important to understand in my mind would be as follows. One is so firstly, the AI platform that we've built is a strategic tool for Genie, which is by Genie for Genie. And that actually, the reason I emphasize that, it helps us a lot to stay very, very focused on what our needs are. It's also aligned with our business model. I hear a lot of talks about people talking about AI, but then it's talked more in the construct of a technology rather than how is it aligned with your business model as well. So maybe we can, if you have some time, we can go a little bit deeper into that. So the technology, so let's focus on the third pillar, the technology, right? So as I told you, there's a team, there's a target, and the technology. And all of these 3 Ts are combined together to help reduce the time to market or time to the patients. So that's the fourth T of the whole equation. So team plus target plus tech combined together to reduce the fourth T, time to patients. In the technology stack that we have built, first, as I mentioned to you, we said we want to focus on drug development and not just limit ourselves only to drug discovery. So what do I mean by that? In any sort of the drug development or any pharmaceutical development stuff, discovery is very important, as we all know. However, discovery is a subset of the development stage. So they just refer to different stages in the process of bringing the drug to the market. The purpose, of course, is to identify what would be the candidates that can treat a specific disease or a condition. That's what you do in the drug discovery. Versus in the drug development, you are really transforming the candidate into a safe and effective and a commercial drug that can be brought. So why is this important to highlight and emphasize? Is because we have the data that is not just limited to discovery, but you have to look at the data in the entire chain of development. So, and I'm going to give you some specific examples to bring this to more tangibleness. But discovery, you have optimization, lead optimizations, candidate selections, as well as the clinical studies. If we focus only on the discovery, we could potentially make different choices, which is not necessarily optimal. But because we have focused on the big picture, which is the entire drug development, it's been important for us to say, okay, we can build the best models, but the data that is going to be part of this, the AI optimization, is just going to be just as important as the model itself. So we could have, in other words, another way of saying this is we could be creating the best AI models, but if the data going in is going to be garbage, then you're going to get garbage out. The classic cliche of that. And what that means is we focus on building that data. So we have our small office in Palo Alto, but we also have our own lab in Mountain View. And so we have effectively integrated the what they call like a dry and the wet. So it's an integrated approach and not a pure AI ML approach to say, oh, we will take data from somebody else and we'll only focus on AI machine learning. That would not have worked for us. AI machine learning is it's a tool for us. It's a strategic tool to help they develop the products.
I love also for the audience to understand the garbage in, the garbage out, and also the access of other data. And you, with your machine learning, focusing on your data. So what does this really mean? Does this limit access to some data, or is it just because of the discovery, the data for discovery, and from this data for discovery that the AI lead optimization is choosing those candidates that could be developed, or does it have access to more data? This is a little bit
That's right. No, so it is what you just said. I think since we are not limiting only to discovery is very, very key, very, very important for us. And we collaborate a lot with the University of Maryland, as you know. But we have said if we just focus only on one aspect of it and not the entire stack of development, then you would end up making very different choices. But in our case, we focus on the entire drug development aspect of it. So, for instance, including in clinical studies. So I'm going to give you one very specific example. So in the case of clinical studies, for instance, what we are doing right now, we actually have a partnership with BARDA, and we've been very honored and grateful that we receive the support and partnership from them. And this is to look at endotyping approaches using AI-powered endotyping. So we can detect and figure out which particular endotype or phenotype the patient is going to be likely in. In the past, historically speaking, other people have also used AI machine learning, but they have also taken reliance on biomarker data. The model that we have built is actually created, that model has been created using 8 clinically available variables, which means it's a simplified model. The accuracy of the model, by the way, is also 99%. So it's actually, more accurate. But what makes it unique is that the data is real world data. So this, we got our hands. So I talked about our data, but also it's equally important to look at the data that is publicly available, but you have to curate the data. So we should be talking about AI/ML in the context of the quality of the data and not just the size of the data. And that is an important aspect to learn, because otherwise you end up getting caught into, well, how many, terabytes and gigabytes and all that stuff, the size of your data is. I think what gets missed in that conversation is, okay, well, has the curation happened accurately? Is it unbiased? So the quality metrics will matter a lot more than just the size of the data. So coming back to this specific example I was referring to, we've built a model that is built on 8 clinically available variables. This model has 2 data sets. One is a data set that was from the real world, actually from Beth Israel. It's called Mimic4 data set. We can even talk about that. But then the RCTs, the clinical trial, the research clinical trial data is then used to validate whether the model that we built on the real world data is the model fitting well or not. So you have to look at it from multiple angles to be able to validate the model. Now, this is a model that we were actually already have publicly presented at the American Thoracic Society in May of this year, and we are just in the process of getting it published. So think about this, right? We are a pharmaceutical, a therapeutics company, a biotech company, and here we are looking at the data that is available. We have curated the data sets, and we are presenting a model. This has nothing to do with the Genie drug at all. This is everything to do looking at the disease, not so much the drug yet. The drug comes later on, and then we will be taking the model that we have created. We would have open sourced it, published it to the world, let the larger community of researchers, clinicians, everybody, let patients, of course, they benefit from it. Then comes, okay, how does our drug then, when we do our phase 2 study and when the data becomes available, we will validate whether this model that we've created, is it working or not working. So the point being is, we are now at a stage in time where this particular company 20 years ago would have been a pure pharmaceutical company doing experiments only, wet experiments, taking the long times, very linear, a good approach, but a very linear approach. AI enables us now to take a non-linear approach, takes us into looking at the data that is even relevant in the clinical studies. And then guess what? A lot of this data, by the way, from the clinical studies will help inform the choices we make for discovery, for compound selection, for lead optimization and everything. So that's why we believe, just to kind of recap a few points we discussed. One, data is very, very important. Quality of the data matters just as much as the size of the data set. Size, of course, is important to make sure that you're statistically significant and all, but the quality is just as important of a metric for us. Number three, it may be your own data, but if you decide to augment it with publicly available data, make sure that your curations of the data are just as important here. And last but not least is, you do not look at a subset of the process, you look at the entire process. And for us, because our alignment of our business model, so we are not out there trying to offer our platform that is fee for service for other companies. It enables us to stay highly, I would say hyper-focused on what the needs of the platform are to suit what our biologists and scientists and drug developers need, as opposed to stretching ourselves too thin. So I know I'm like covering a lot of things, but I just wanted to give you that whole entire thing.
Yes, absolutely amazing. And I love that you emphasize the quality of the data is as important as the size, even more, according to me, because as you said, garbage in, garbage out. But of course, if the data size is important and curated, then I don't know what is our limit as a human race right now. Because as you said, it was linear, and even in our thinking, even in our business thinking, we're used to being linear, right? Like we try this approach, we wait for the results. If it doesn't work, we go back, we readjust and change. But now with the AI, we multiple approaches as being worked on and tried at the same time, and the adjustment is happening in a way that is accelerating the whole thing. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm like, that's the excitement about AI for me. And the excitement also about a curated, sizable data is the findings that we're making like every day. Sometimes if we take just a disease or connection, we did not think that some things are correlated. And now with the sizable data, we're looking at this. There is a correlation between this and, let's say, hyperactivity, or there's a correlation between this and the food or nutrition that we had no idea. But that size curated data, and that's the thing that we have to be really careful with, because if the data is not curated, we could go on a tangent to create like diseases that do not exist or remedies that do not exist as well. So Soujanya, is it because it's an AI platform that is well curated, well quality data? What I loved also, before I go there, I love that your model, you render it accessible to the community at large, which is like the biggest quality of a leaper. Of course, when you're studying your molecules, you have to have, your own exclusivity on that because you want to be the ones getting it. But at the same time, you're able to advance science to create the win for you, for the community at the same time, and for the patient, which is the paradigm that we talk about in Leap Beyond Success. In terms of AI, do you want to add anything? I know you started before the Chat GPT became like coined by every single human being on earth, and we found all these crazy things that AI is able to do. You started before that. Also, like when I listen to Sam Altman and all these people, and they're saying that the progression is 10 times a year in terms of AI. How is this accelerating what you're working on? How is this affecting your platform right now as we speak?
So it's a good point, by the way. The velocity and efficiency, they are both impacted significantly. There's no question about it. I'm going to give you one specific example of what we are currently working on. And I think that can be, so as I said, we are a therapeutics company. We focus on getting the drugs to the patient, right? These are novel therapeutic medicines. What an example is, as we were doing this study, we decided to look at which sites are likely to have more patients, which sites are likely. So we started to take the data from what's publicly available. So we built a tool, an internal tool, to figure out the site selection process. Given we are such a small size company, we are only 6 people with 8 other folks help. We call ourselves MTFTs, more than full time, because weekends and long weekends we are at work, and as well as we have other 8 supporting people supporting the development. But it's very, very small. As you can see, the numbers are not 50, then hundreds and 500s and all, which is typically the case. But what that means is we can only have so much bandwidth as we are trying to do our outreach to which particular sites should we approach and which particular sites we should choose for our clinical study. So we started to build a model, and I will be first to admit it. Actually, our first version of the model did not quite work well. I think we had a lot of biases in that particular model. So not everything that you try immediately, I don't want to come across like, oh, everything in AI is absolutely perfect and everything great. No, there are pitfalls, and we are humans, we are prone to error, and I think we let our biases come in the way. So we talked about the curation of the data, we've talked about the quality of the data, but also making sure that, as unbiased as you can. I think it helps you build a more robust model than what we suffered. Now, good news is we took that, we found that, okay, which is actually giving us a different selection. The tool has now been updated to the next version, sort of the next generation, where we are now looking at it from a much more unbiased way, I would say. And that is also helping us inform the choices of which clinical sites, which particular geographies, how is the disease progressing? Because imagine you have so much data available. When an influenza thing happens, in the country, it starts on the East Coast, comes towards the West. Which particular sites are there that have done this study in the past? Which specific principal investigator, which PI has done this study in the past? So we are able to look at it from a much more holistic way, rather than, again, 10, 20 years ago, it would be that we now have to reach out to 1,000 sites, send the survey forms, let's see what it says, which would have been, what would have taken now 6 months can now be done in 6 weeks. And hopefully that 6 week gets further compressed down as the quality. And I think as AI sort of, is more well accepted, the forms are easy, but AI and data go hand in hand. And that is what I would make sure that, my big takeaway always has been is a lot of emphasis has been talked about on AI. You need to put just as much equal emphasis on the data as well.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. This is precious, of course, the quality of the data.
Yes.
I always remember the garbage in, garbage out. Absolutely a very important thing. What do you see for your industry, the pitfalls, the inconvenience, the risks of over-reliance on AI or AI as such? Like what are the major, we talked about the quality of the data, but what else do you see also as pitfalls?
I don't know if I see them as, sort of risk. I think over time, things are actually going to get better anyway. There's the amount of the data, even in terms of like the understanding of the proteins, the biology of it. So let me say it a little bit differently. I think AI has made significant progress on the chemistry part of it. Applying AI to the biology part of it, I think we are just beginning to scratch the surface. And we have a long, long, long way to go about it. I think chemistry is much more better understood. Biology has just so many variables to be factored in. So we are seeing a lot of the early successes of AI happening on the chemistry side. And I think there's a lot of achievements that need to and accomplishments that need to happen on the biology side. So we need more data, understanding of more. And by the way, I'll give you one more specific example. When we did our phase 1 study, I think we had, if I remember correctly, 1,300 or some number of proteins that we were in the proteomics panel that we were able to analyze. By the way, Ritu will tell you this. When she was working at Roche, this is 20 years ago, she said, I would be grateful if I got like 3 proteins. That's how the scale changed. So we just went from 3 to 1,300, right, in a matter of 20 years with that. And that obviously helps to create a better AI prediction models to be able to detect that. In phase 2, we are looking at 5,000 proteins just from 2 years ago. So this is where the exponential part of it is going to come in. This is where, what you earlier alluded to, like Sam Altman talking about it, as well as other AI experts in this field. But the entire field, it's an ecosystem, is really being helped upon. We have another great partner and an investor in us. They've actually invested multiple times in us. It's the company called Vituity. It is Vital and Acuity, and their subsidiary is called Inflect Health. So our partnership with Inflect Health enables us to get insights into the cost of care, into the gaps in care. This is a physician group of 4,000 physicians spread across the United States in 400 hospitals. They have their own billing company. They have their own malpractice insurance company. So obviously we don't get granular data, that's off limits, but the insights into where the gaps are. So again, as a biotech company, somebody would say like, wait a second, what do you need it for? But the selection of the diseases, the choice of the diseases, what are the health economics of the drug, of the treating the patient, these are all equally important. So much more holistic approach is what it now enables us to take, rather than sticking to, just the chemistry or just the biology, but looking at it from the developmental angle, the biology side of it, the chemistry side of it, as well as the commercial angle. So a much more holistic view, and I believe that is what will help as we go along in the roadmap of not just Genie Life Sciences, but for everybody. You can factor in a lot more variables in the decisions that you make, the choices that you make, and help increase the chances of success.
That is great. According to you, is it possible that we go on developing drugs and we find that there was an error after the development, or through the phases of the development of the drugs, this will be discovered much earlier, right?
I think it's the latter, because, luckily in the biotech industry, it's a regulated industry, but you also have these great milestones to check in. So I don't think you can just continue going on and then realize, oops, did I make a mistake? You have this very nice checkpoints, for lack of a better word, which enables you to see, are you on the right track here or not? And I think the checkpoints are serving a good way to make sure that not only the efficiency, but also the probability of success. So efficiency is improved and the probability of success is improved. So no, I'm very optimistic about this thing.
Your industry, I feel that is awesome. So what's the future for you and this industry, according to you? Like, where do you see this in 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? What's the future?
So if you just take a step back, right, to kind of project into the future, sometimes it's better to take a step back. And I would say, if you take a step back and look at, if Genie can do this, to go from early discovery to phase 2 in 2.5 years with like single-digit millions of dollars, others, hopefully that serves as an inspiration for other companies too, which means the need for capital should come down, because somebody should be able to look at it and say like, oh, this efficiency has now been demonstrated by Genie, and this should really inspire more entrepreneurs, more biologists, more, anybody from that matter, more clinicians to come in and say, we can do it too. So we foresee a world, Ritu and I, we say, you know what, the pandemic already proved that you could do certain things in a very, in a fast way. Of course, the efficiencies, the costs were high to developing those things, the vaccines and all that great stuff but it could be done in record time. Same thing can now be applied to medicines, and AI could actually help you increase the efficiency significantly more, bring your cost down. And all of this to basically to say, we still live in a world where 7,000 diseases, only 5% of them have therapy. So 95% of 7,000 diseases have no treatment at all. And we should not be living in that world. Like, we should be taking the AI approaches, looking at it from, okay, if Genie has done this in an efficient way, we can do it. And then Genie will continue to, of course, double down on that ourselves to bring. And ultimately, by the way, all of this should also have an impact. If the cost of development of the drug is going to be so little, it should help the world where if the cost of the drug development is going to be so suddenly shrunk, it's not just the United States, I think the worldwide, it should inspire entrepreneurs, and ultimately it will have an impact on the pricing of the drug for the patients.
And this is great. Do you see, like, for equality reasons, like a lot of people say, like, this is gonna be more accessible for the people who can afford, but it will increase the inequality among populations. Do you see this happening in this industry as well, or do you see that?
Absolutely. We already see this, by the way. I mean, there's so many great companies that have also come in looking at health equity. And I think the previous chairman of Merck, he talks about it like, your zip code has just as much of an impact on your, on your recovery as much as your, not the exact same words, but the essence is your zip code is just perhaps more important or just as important as your genetic code. And it's true. So yes, I think factoring in some of the inequities and how to remove them, this is where some of the biases and all can go out, or how to have more diversity in terms of, the patient populations that are being recruited. The fact that you don't need as much capital to be able to go out and develop the drugs, all of these are going to have significantly additive effects, where I think drug development should be way more efficient, and we do not live in a world where so many diseases remain untreated.
I agree. Do you see the prices drop for the development?
I hope so, to be honest. It's an interesting question. I think it will, only because the cost of the development comes down. Right now, I think the cost of development is just so high that it's kind of harder. It's a separate conversation we should have in detail on that. But I think so. I'm an eternal optimist. I believe it will, especially if the costs of development and increasing the chances of success with AI improve, then there is no need. And to be honest, I just don't look at the United States as the only, this can then inspire everywhere, right? I mean, AI is not limited to only one particular geography. You are seeing some, different models being developed in different parts of the world as well. So I think it will happen. Naturally, it will increase competition, and competition increase will lead to more competitive pricing.
Right. So sometimes I think of it that way. I think that initially maybe the inequities will be and the disparity will be wider. But I think that maybe if the prices drop, then the poor populations will have more access, or maybe as leapers, companies will take on some communities to raise the level. I always hope that way, because I always write about leap, and in order for us to leap and create a legacy, we have to go beyond our own success and create the success for our communities. But I know that right now, for the economic leaders of the world, and the founders of AI are a little bit worried about the accessible and the diversity and the inequities and the market.
Any technology, I think, has it's it's multifaceted in any way. It can be abused, and we see unfortunately some really bad applications of that happening. But there's also a very good applications, and hopefully we are on this side of the equation and not the other one. So
is there any risk of a fake in your industry? I know when we talk about social media, when we talk about financial, all these like the fake and the abuses are more pronounced, but in your industry, do you see some abuses that you warn us against with the development?
I'm not sure I'm qualified to be very frank to make that comment. So no, I don't. I would say the only thing is kind of sometimes getting carried away by the hype too much could be one of the things as a potential downside. So we should not. I think we would temper it with the expectations that you're going to need some real world data to support your predictions. So it's not just going to be like, oh, now suddenly you can do something in a couple of weeks. No, that's not going to be. There are certain realities, I think, that we have to just accept them anyways. But I don't see them as abuses. I just see them as managing of expectations.
I agree. Soujanya, thank you so much for this interview. It's so informative, and I'm sure the readers and the audience will love hearing and reading about it. Part 2 will be with Ritu. I wish you all the luck with Genie.
Thank you. So grateful.
Your leapers as founders, as company, as principals. And I can't be more honored that you are.
Oh no, it's my pleasure, and so honored. Really grateful for giving us the opportunity. Keep your good wishes and prayers to Genie, because we are trying to serve patients, and that's all. Honestly, I mean this with utmost sincerity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Part 2 will be with Ritu whenever she can, and
yes.
I'm already so much fulfilled and happy that I had this.
Yeah. Thank you. To be continued, Micheline.
Okay, thanks, Soujanya.
Thanks. Bye.